Hey guys, so I'm just sitting here and wondering if we've made this too complicated. We see on the 23rd of September the sign which comes into place, and as I put in my other videos, the next conjunction which happens in the heavens is between Mars and Venus, which is this Feast of Tabernacles. And the story that John was telling in the heavens is definitely matched up to events which are going on spiritually and in the natural realm, but perhaps we've looked into this dragon a little too deeply, and we should just look at what happens in the heavens next. So we know that Mars is the planet of war, it's the planet of blood, it could also be seen as the planet of danger. In the post-flood world, Nimrod is the model of the Antichrist, or he was the first Antichrist after the flood. And the dragon is very closely associated with Mars, and also Nimrod took the dragon to be his emblem. And there's one common element to Nimrod, or Marduk, who he was later deified into. Nimrod was made the god Marduk, and that was that in all his manifestations is the symbol of the snake or the serpent or the dragon. And Nimrod took the dragon as his personal emblem, so that from him would spring various dragon myths and their special association with apocalyptic events. It's also remarkable that there is a syllable with the consonant value MR, which is found everywhere in connection with the planet Mars, or the god of Mars, and its associated emblem, the dragon. The source of all these words is to be found in the Semitic root Mara, which in the Hebrew means bitterness as well as disobedience. And from the root of this word is marad, or rebellion, which is the original both of Nimrod, the Babylonian Nimrod, or NMRD. So you see this MR or Mur consonant, which is found all throughout the Babylonian texts, and with reference to Nimrod and Mars and rebellion, as well as Marduk and Merodach. And the Bible tells us that Nimrod was the founder of Nineveh, and Nineveh's own half-legendary history ascribes that honor to one Ninur, or Nimrod, or Nimur. And Marduk was the original name of the character of the gods of Mercury and Mars, so from which of course we derive the names of these planets. And it's notable that Mercury, like Mars, is also battle-scarred. And both Mercury and Mars are seen to be malefic planets. They're seen as being planets of bad omens and things which are not positive. Here we see an ancient Babylonian inscription with Nimrod and the seven-headed dragon. I came across this, which was from the NASA Aeronautical Space Research Center, and it's a project which is about Mars sample return using commercial capabilities. And in this document, they're discussing the Mars return samples and the mission to Mars. And all throughout, you can see it's the red dragon approach and the red dragon. So I found this very interesting, that the red dragon is associated with Mars. Here we also see the dragon scales of Mars. In this article, they've taken photos of the surface of Mars, and you can see it has this dragon-like surface, or very much like the skin of a dragon, being scaly. And here's a little bit more of a close-up of the surface of Mars, which looks very much like the skin of a dragon. Here we can see another project by NASA with SpaceX, which is Elon Musk's startup. They want to land a craft on Mars by 2017. That's what they said their objective was. And we know that Elon Musk is an Obama troglodyte. He's funded by, he was funded by the US government, and it was Obama that gave him all of the grants and saved his Tesla company. SpaceX Red Dragon, there's a wiki page. You can see this is the craft that they supposedly want to land on Mars. These people are all in cahoots. I believe that they are, the elites know what's coming. They know what's about to happen. I've been having a look in this book, which is the Chaldean account of Genesis, containing the description of creation, the fall of man, the deluge, the Tower of Babel, the times of the patriarchs, and Nimrod, Babylonian fables and legends of the gods from cuneiform inscriptions, and this is by George Smith from 1840 to 1846. In the account, it says the fragmentary account of the fall in the inscriptions mentions the dragon of Tiamat, or the dragon of the sea, evidently the same relation as the serpent being concerned in bringing about the fall. So they did believe in a fall, and they believed in the fall of man, and it was this dragon or the serpent, which is obviously associated with Satan. And this dragon is called the dragon of Tiamat, or the sea. And the details are also lost in cuneiform text, but which opens up again where the gods are cursing the dragon and Adam or man for this transgression, which corresponds to the passage in Genesis. So there is a very similar account in the Babylonian history of the world. And it's quite clear that the dragon, or the sea of the dragon, Tiamat, is connected with the fall like the serpent in the book of Genesis. And in fact, the dragon is the equivalent of the serpent. And obviously we know that Satan is the serpent. We know that Satan is the dragon because the Bible tells us that. And the name of the dragon is not written phonetically, but by two monograms, which probably means the scaly one, or an animal covered with scales. And the description, of course, might either apply to a dragon or a serpent or a fish. He says it is clear that the dragon is included in the curse for the fall, and that the gods invoke on the head of the human race all the evils which afflict humanity. Wisdom and knowledge shall injure him. He shall have family quarrels. He shall submit to tyranny. He will anger the gods. He shall not eat the fruit of his labor. He shall be disappointed in his desires. He shall pour out useless prayer. He shall have troubled mind and body, and he shall commit future sin. So this is all in these Babylonian accounts on these cylinders which they inscribed. And then he goes on to say the final struggle between Tiamat and Merodach, or Baal. And this fragment appears to distinguish between the dragon of Tiamat, or the sea monster. He also says that between Michael and the dragon in Revelation 12, 7-9, where the dragon is called the great dragon, that of the old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. This description is strikingly like the impression gathered from the fragments of the cuneiform story, the dragon Tiamat, who fought against the gods and led man to sin, and whose fate it was to be conquered in a celestial war, closely corresponds in all essential points to the dragon conquered by Michael. And these fragments of the cuneiform account of the creation and fall agree so far as they are preserved with the biblical account, and show that from the period of 2000 BC to 1500 BC, the Babylonians believed in a similar story to that of Genesis. And Genesis was written quite a long time after the fall. It was about 1200 or 1300 BC that Moses was given the Torah. So the Babylonians believed in what was essentially the truth before the Torah was written, but obviously they've interpreted it differently because this was passed down to them and twisted by the wife of Nimrod and Nimrod's descendants. But nevertheless, it still remains a sort of shadow or a vague parallel of what was happening in the book of Genesis. So back to the celestial events that we see happening in heaven, we see Mars about to conjunct with Venus. And perhaps we've made too much of the dragon, and we should just look at the next event which happens after the sign, which is this conjunction with Mars and Venus. We know that Jupiter is the child that's being born, but we also know that Venus is the other benefic or positive planet of Messiah. It's the planet of Yeshua, and he called himself the bright and morning star. And Mars is just about to conjunct with that bright and morning star, which is the representation of Christ in a planet. And Mars is the planet of war, and it's the red planet, and John describes it as a red dragon. It may very well be that this is the next thing that he's talking about. The story is being told in the heavens, and we can see that Jupiter has been birthed, and here is this conjunction. So it very well may be that this conjunction is the red dragon, and the catching away of the child happens at this conjunction. In Revelation chapter 6, it says that John saw the moon turn blood red. So it's very likely that that would be a full moon, and the moon being in Pisces tonight on the Feast of Tabernacles, as this conjunction happens, as Mars, the war planet, the planet that has scales like a dragon, merges with Venus. The moon is in Pisces. The Jewish scribe Barbanel and other Jewish scribes confirm that Pisces is the representation of Israel. So here we see the full moon going into Pisces as this conjunction happens, and the very next day we see the moon going into the sea monster, or the beast. And the beast we see in Revelation 13:1, and I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, is very much the same as what we see in Revelation 12:3. And there appeared another great wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. And we know that that is Satan, because it tells us further on in the chapter. But this event could simply be represented by the Mars and Venus conjunction that we're about to see. Well, one thing's for sure, we're going to find out very soon.